The Vermeer Interviews, Conversations with 7 Works of Art by Bob Roska. Johannes or Jan Vermeer is one of the most popular painters in the history of art, yet we know very little about him. Written records of Vermeer's life and his paintings are scarce. We know he was born in 1632, died in 1675, and lived in Delft, a city in modern-day Netherlands. But we don't have any of Vermeer's early sketches or drawings. We don't have any letters he may have written. We don't even know who his teachers were. Most of what we know about Vermeer we have learned by studying his paintings. However, Vermeer made very few paintings during his lifetime, and not all of them have survived to this day. Some art scholars say just 34 remain. Others say as many as 36. When I look at a Vermeer painting, I often feel as though I'm interrupting someone in a personal moment. Somehow this feeling makes the people in his painting seem more real. Many of Vermeer's paintings look like photographs, which adds to their realness. Several art historians believe Vermeer used an early form of the camera to compose his paintings, called a camera obscura. This was a large wooden box with a lens at one end. Instead of taking pictures like a modern camera, it projected the scene the artist wanted to paint onto the back wall of the box. There, the painter could study the image or even trace it to make paintings more true to life. But no matter what technique Vermeer used to bring his paintings to life, I wanted to know more about them, so I decided to interview a few of my favorites. As you are about to see, these paintings are as alive today as they were more than 300 years ago when Vermeer created them. The Milkmaid, 1658 to 1660. An everyday beauty, a conversation with the milkmaid. Bob, you have always been one of Vermeer's most popular paintings. Does this surprise you? Maid, you mean because I'm just a maid? Bob, well, I wouldn't put it quite like that. It's okay. I know I'm not as pretty or mysterious as the girl with the pearl earring, but I don't measure myself against other paintings. You are referring, of course, to one of Vermeer's other portraits called The Girl with the Pearl Earring. She certainly has been popular lately, with both a book and movie being made about her. Do you hope to be the subject of a book or a movie someday? Heavens, no! She's a lovely girl and I'm happy for her, but we're two completely different paintings. You said earlier, I'm just a maid, but there is something beautiful and even heroic about you. Thank you for saying so. Master Vermeer was very good at capturing the beauty of everyday life. I'm just a housemaid pouring milk, but somehow he made me more than that. He used many visual tricks. Like what? Oh, like playing with light and dark. Look at my right hand, the one holding the handle of the pitcher. Do you see how the light coming through the window makes it bright? Yes, I can see that. However, the wall behind my hand is dark because it's in shadow, so my right hand stands out. This draws your eye to the only action in the painting, which is my pouring the milk. You're right, it does. Now, if you look at the left side of my body, the part farthest from the window, you'll see that it's in shadow, but the wall behind that part of me is bright, so the entire left side of my body appears to come forward, making me look more three-dimensional. Master Vermeer understood that putting bright areas next to dark areas created this effect. I believe he called it contrast. That's amazing. That's why Vermeer is sometimes called the painter of light. What other visual tricks did he use? The blue cloth flowing off the edge of the table. Do you see how it's directly under the milk flowing out of the pitcher? Now that you've pointed it out, I do. That is no accident. Master Vermeer did that so the flowing movement would continue right off the canvas. How clever! I guess there really is beauty in the details. By the way, what is that wooden box on the floor behind you? That is a foot warmer filled with hot coals. It comes in quite handy during our cold Dutch winters. By the way, do you see the blue and gray tiles behind the foot warmer? Those were made here in Delft. In addition to being decorative, they protect the plaster walls from sweeping and mopping. Do you have a favorite detail in this painting? Well, since you asked, I do love the broken window pane. Wow, I've seen this painting dozens of times. I've never noticed that before. That is what I love about it, the fact that most people don't see it. It's one of those little things that make me feel at home. You do look at home so satisfied and focused on your work. I can almost hear you humming a tune to yourself. Do you ever hum? Well, let's just say I haven't had many other ways to pass the time over the last 300 years. I read somewhere that Vermeer based your pose on an earlier Italian painting of a queen. Yes, Queen Artemisa by Domenica Fiesella. Do you ever wish you were a queen instead of a maid? Never. I'm very happy with who I am. The Geographer, 1668 to 1669. A bit of wanderlust. A conversation with the geographer. Bob. Most of Vermeer's paintings show women who are busy with some sort of quiet activity, but two of his paintings are of men who are scientists. Why do you suppose he painted you, a geographer? Geo. I believe it had to do with the advances being made in geography at the time. European explorers and traders were discovering new worlds. Map-making techniques were improving. In fact, the Netherlands had become a center for map-making. Were the maps in this painting made in the Netherlands? Most definitely. Master Vermeer painted his maps so accurately that historians can identify their publishers. For example, the map on the wall behind me is a sea chart published by Willem Janssen Blah. The globe above my head was published by Henrik Hondius. Both were based in Amsterdam, a city not far from Delft. One of my favorite things about this painting is the thoughtful expression on your face. I can't help but wonder what you're thinking about. Yes, I do have a lot on my mind. Some people think you are experiencing a moment of inspiration, but to me it looks like you're suffering from a bit of wanderlust. The way you look up toward the outside world, I imagine that you're thinking about sailing to some of the far-off places on your maps. That's interesting because in Master Vermeer's original composition, I was actually looking down at my charts. Really? So he painted over this original pose? Yes, just to the left of my face, you can see a hazy, dark outline. It matches the shape of my forehead, only it's tilted at a downward angle. I see it. If Master Vermeer had left me looking down instead of up, you might not have seen that wanderlust. What a difference a single change can make. Did Vermeer make any other changes in this painting? On the little table in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the ghost image of a sheet of paper. If I remember correctly, Master Vermeer painted over the paper to make that corner darker. He was always balancing the light and dark areas in this painting. Fascinating. I've noticed also that several of Vermeer's paintings featured oriental rugs, like the one draped over your table. Is there a reason for this? As I said earlier, it was an age of exploration. By this time, the Dutch had established a shipping route to China and Japan. The globe behind me is actually turned to show the route. As a result, rugs and other goods from throughout Asia had become popular in the Netherlands. The Japanese robe I'm wearing is another example. What is that tool you're holding? It looks like a compass. It is a set of dividers. I use it to measure distance on charts and maps. You may also notice the cross staff hanging between the windows. It is used to figure out the location of a ship at sea by measuring the distance between the North Star and the horizon. Speaking of the stars, you look an awful lot like the astronomer Vermeer's other painting of a scientist. Very observant. Yes, Master Vermeer used the same model to paint us both. Many art historians think the model for both you and the astronomer was Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the famous Delft scientist. I have heard that theory. Wasn't he born in Delft in 1632, just like Vermeer? Yes, I believe he was. I seem to remember that he was famous for improving the microscope and discovering many microscopic life forms, but wasn't Van Leeuwenhoek also skilled in navigation, astronomy, mathematics, and natural science? He was indeed. Also, he would have been 36 years old at the time you were painted, the same age you appear to be, not to mention that when Vermeer died, Van Leeuwenhoek was the one who carried out the instructions in his will. Based on all this, I have to believe that you are Antony van Leeuwenhoek. As a man of science, I must admit, your evidence is compelling. The artist in his studio, 1665 to 1666. The riddle of the Sphinx, a conversation with the artist in his studio. I'll get right to the point. None of Vermeer's known paintings are self-portraits, yet because you are an artist, many people assume that you are Jean Vermeer. Are you? What do you think? I like to think so, but I also think it's funny that if you are Jean Vermeer, your only self-portrait is one that doesn't show your face. Historians don't call Master Vermeer the Sphinx of Delft for nothing. The Sphinx of Delft? In Greek mythology, the Sphinx was a winged creature with a lion's body and a woman's head. It strangled anyone who couldn't answer its riddle. Later, the word Sphinx came to mean any person who is difficult to know. Now, I'm fairly certain that Jean Vermeer never strangled anyone, but I have to agree that he is difficult to know. So, are you Jean Vermeer or not? Let's just say I knew him very well. That's the kind of puzzling answer I'd expect from a Sphinx. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask your lovely model a few questions. It looks like you're wearing a costume of some sort. Who are you pretending to be? Well, the horn I hold represents fame. The book in my hand is the works of Thucydides, a classical Greek historian, and on my head are the laurels of victory. These are all symbols of Clio. the muse of history. What exactly is a muse? Like the Sphinx, the Muses come from Greek mythology. They were the 9 daughters of Zeus, the king of the Greek gods. The ancient Greeks believed that the Muses watched over the arts and sciences, providing inspiration to people who worked in those fields. So why is the artist painting you as the muse of history? Because at this time, Dutch history was being made. The southern half of the Netherlands had recently won its independence from the Habsburg Empire, which ruled over much of Europe. It became a democracy known as the United Provinces. This new country was starting with a clean canvas, so to speak, just like the artist. And by painting you, the artist is also making history? Precisely. Speaking of history, I understand that you two had quite a scare during World War II. Yes, we did. In 1940, the German Nazi leader Adolf Hitler bought our painting. We ended up being stored in a salt mine outside Salzburg, Austria, for 5 years, along with many other famous paintings. Many great pieces of art were destroyed during the war, but thankfully we survived. You certainly have lived through a lot. You know, I love the fact that there is an empty chair in the lower left-hand corner of this painting. It's as if Vermeer is inviting me to sit down and watch him, or should I say, you paint. Master Vermeer would be happy to hear you say that. Yes, the empty chair is one of the ways that he invites you into his painting. The hanging curtain is another. You're right. The curtain makes me want to reach out and pull it aside to see what's behind it. You see, it works. Both the curtain and the chair are examples of a painter's trick called repose, which creates an illusion of depth and draws you into the scene. Incredible. I'd like to ask Cleo just one more question. As the artist's model, you must know whether or not he is Jean Vermeer. I do. Well, some things are better left a mystery, don't you think? Great, a muse who thinks she's a sphinx. I guess I'll just have to content myself with pulling up the empty chair and watching you two work. Do you mind? Not at all. Be our guest. Woman in Blue reading a letter, 1662 to 1663. How to read a painting, a conversation with the woman in blue reading a letter. I was talking to the milkmaid recently. Do you know her? Oh, yes. Our paintings both hang in the same museum in Amsterdam. She was telling me that Vermeer used many visual tricks to make her look heroic. How did she make you look so quiet and still? Where should I begin? The most obvious thing Master Vermeer did was to shape me like a triangle, wider at the bottom than at the top. This helps hold me in place. He also anchored me in the center of the painting. Such simple devices, yet both are very effective. Yes, and look at my hands. The black bar at the bottom of the hanging map seems to pin them in place, preventing them from moving. Very clever. What about Vermeer's colors? Do they affect your mood? Tremendously. The blues and browns Master Vermeer used to paint me are calming, peaceful colors. Imagine how different the mood of this painting would be if I were dressed in red. I hate to be nosy, but I'm dying to know who sent you that letter. I could just tell you, but what fun would that be? You can probably figure it out for yourself just by reading my painting. How do you read a painting? It's like being what would you call it? A detective. You have to study all the visual clues in the painting to figure out what story the artist is telling. Could you give me an example? Of course. Try to read my body language first. Do you see how my neck is bent forward, how my lips are parted, and how I hold the letter with both hands, with my arms drawn in? What do you make of these clues? That you've been eagerly waiting for this letter, that the information in it is important to you. Those are both reasonable conclusions. What about the room around me? Does the chair in the foreground suggest anything, or the map behind my head? I'm not sure what you mean. Well, I am alone, the chair is empty, and the map shows places that are quite far away. I see. So the empty chair might suggest that the person who wrote the letter is missing from this room, and the map might suggest that this person is writing from far away. Again, those guesses make sense based on the clues Master Vermeer has given you. From the way your clothes fit, you look like you might be pregnant. Would that be a clue? Now you're getting the idea. Many people agree that I look like I am with child. I remember reading that Vermeer and his wife, Katarina, had 11 children. With her being pregnant so often, and with Vermeer needing a pregnant model, what I'm getting at is, are you Katarina? Many art scholars have wondered the same thing. For now, let's just say that I'm with child and I've received a letter from someone far away, a letter that I've been waiting for. Whom do you think it's from? It seems so obvious now, your husband. But you had to gather the clues before you could say so. And remember, this doesn't mean that other people won't read my painting differently. How could someone possibly read this painting differently? You think I look like I am with child, but some people think that the way my clothes fit, flaring out around my middle, was just part of the fashion of the time. If that's the case, then the writer of this letter doesn't seem so obvious, and maybe you are not Vermeer's wife. As I said, those were reasonable conclusions you made based on how you read my painting. Others may not see me that way. Is there a right way to read your painting? Only Master Vermeer knows for sure, and he never told me. Young woman with a water pitcher, 1662. Reflections and Rectangles, a conversation with the young woman with a water pitcher. You are wearing what looks like a wide white collar. What is it? It is called a night rail, a night shirt for the shoulders. Dutch women wore these to bed, and in the morning, when getting dressed, as you can see, I'm preparing to wash my face in the basin. The night rail helps protect my dress from splashing water. Like most people who look at this painting, I would love to know why you are opening the window. You could just be letting in some fresh air, but I get the feeling that some sort of noise outside has interrupted you. Other people think that you're going to water the flowers in a window box. I love that idea. Then there is the blue dress lying over the chair beside you, and the string of pearls hanging from the box on the table. One art historian has suggested that by opening the window, you're looking forward to escaping the boredom of your daily life and dressing up for an evening out. Could you shed some light on all of this? Isn't it remarkable how much of a story someone can create from just a few simple details? Of course, in the end, it doesn't really matter why I'm opening the window. What matters is that you are asking the questions. It means that Master Vermeer has succeeded in making you curious, and he would be tickled to know it. If he would be tickled by that, he would probably laugh out loud over this. I actually have this idea in my head that your view from the window is the same view shown in the Vermeer's landscape painting, The Little Street. I won't give away any secrets, but that's not as unlikely as you may think. I love how Vermeer painted the reflections of the blue sky and the white clouds in the window. It looks like a nice day in your painting. Any day you can spend being painted by a man called the Painter of Light is a nice day. But seriously, Master Vermeer never missed an opportunity to show off his skill at painting light. If you like how he handled the sky and clouds in the window, take a look at the reflection of the oriental rug on the bottom of the wash bin. I was just admiring that. You know, every time I look at one of Vermeer's paintings, I see something new. For instance, I noticed the way he balanced your hand on the window by placing your other hand on the water pitcher. Yes, and you've only scratched the surface. You wouldn't believe how hard Master Vermeer worked to balance the composition of this painting. Try me. Well, he started with rectangles. The window, the table, and the map are all rectangles, all similar in size. These 3 rectangles form a triangle within the painting, with me at the center. Did you notice how easily your eyes move from the window to the table to the map? Now that you mentioned it, I do. Now look at the white spaces between the window, the table, and the map. They're roughly rectangular as well. They form their own triangle that interlocks with the first. So everything is in balance. How in the world did Vermeer think of all this? Oh, there's more. Do you see how the window is blue, the table is red, and the map is yellow? Let me guess. So the 3 primary colors are all represented equally? Correct. And that's not all, because my gaze pulls your eyes to the left in the direction of the window. Master Vermeer put more objects on the right side of the painting to pull your eyes back. I never realized how much thought and planning Vermeer put into his paintings. That he did. Even so, Master Vermeer was not above trial and error. For example, there's a slightly darker area on the wall behind my head. He originally painted the map there, then changed his mind. And under my right arm, just to the right of the window, you can almost make out the shape of a lion's head. This was the carved part of a chair that he painted over. I guess he was human after all. Still, you must feel lucky to have been painted by such an artistic genius. Who wouldn't? People have been admiring me for centuries. A person doesn't get much luckier than that. Woman with a Pearl Necklace, 1664. Mira, Mira, A conversation with a woman with a pearl necklace. You have been looking at yourself in the mirror for more than 300 years now. Do you like what you see? Well, I don't want to sound vain, but I have aged pretty well, don't you think? The truth is, I feel very fortunate. Not many people get the chance to be around for as long as I have, or to be painted by an artist as talented as Master Vermeer. Many of Vermeer's paintings show women in private moments, but yours is the one that makes me feel the most like I'm invading someone's privacy, even more so than Woman in Blue reading a letter. I actually feel a little uncomfortable watching you. Does it seem strange to have people looking at you while you look at yourself? You get used to it. We all like to watch other people when they think they're alone. We all eavesdrop now and then. Master Vermeer understood that allowing you to invade my privacy would draw you into the painting. And it worked. In the end, I'd much rather have people looking at me than not looking at me. There is a faint line between you and the right edge of the canvas and another one along the top of the painting. Are they signs of damage? After Master Vermeer finished this painting, he decided a smaller composition looked better. Those lines show where he originally framed it. Over the years, restorers reframed it to include what he left out. I've noticed that your fur-lined yellow jacket is the same yellow jacket worn by the women in 5 other Vermeer paintings. Women with a lute, a lady writing a letter, mistress and maid, the love letter, and the guitar player. Does this bother you? I suppose it should, but no, it doesn't bother me. The jacket is so beautiful. You can see why Master Vermeer wanted to paint it again and again. I feel honored to be wearing something that was such a favorite of his. Was yellow one of his favorite colors? It certainly was. Just look at how much yellow is in this painting alone. The curtain, my jacket, my blonde hair, even the light in the room has a yellow tint to it. As with most Vermeer paintings, there seems to be an underlying story here. You are wearing a fancy jacket with a red bow in your hair. You have pearls hanging from your ears and a string of pearls around your neck. Then there is that mysterious piece of paper on the chair next to your dressing table. Are you getting ready to meet someone? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that because I'm making a fuss over how I look, the piece of paper must be a note from my secret admirer telling me when to meet him. I take it other people have jumped to this conclusion. It's human nature. You want to know why I'm getting dressed up, so you make up a story based on what you see in the painting. By including mysterious details like the note on the chair, Master Vermeer encouraged viewers to fill in the blanks. I think it's one of the reasons people enjoy his paintings so much. In other words, as far as Vermeer is concerned, it's not important for me to know what the story behind the painting is. What's important is that I think there is one. I couldn't have said it better myself. I was recently reading something by an art critic who said that the real subject of this painting is not you, but the blank space between you and the mirror. What do you think he meant by that? I never thought about it that way, but I think I know what that person means. The blank wall allows my gaze to travel to and from the mirror uninterrupted, which creates a long moment of tension. As I look at myself, Master Vermeer also made the wall brighter closer to the mirror, which makes my reflection look as if it is glowing. I also read that Vermeer had originally sketched a map on the wall and then decided against it. Yes, that is true, and you can see why. The map would have taken your attention away from my gaze and broken the tension. So sometimes knowing what to leave out of a painting is just as important as what to put in. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? That's what Master Vermeer did best. He made the complicated look simple. The Music Lesson, 1662 to 1665. Two love stories, a conversation with the couple in the music lesson. The title of your painting is The Music Lesson. What kind of instrument is the young lady playing? I'm playing a virginal, which is a type of harpsichord. If I may be more specific, a harpsichord is a stringed instrument played with keys. When the keys are pressed, a mechanism inside plucks the strings, similar to the way a harp player plucks a harp's strings. Most harpsichords are triangular in shape, but the virginal is box-shaped. It's very decorative as a music instructor. Do you have any idea how much an instrument like this might cost? This one was quite expensive. It was made by the world-famous Ruckers family in Antwerp, Belgium in 1660. It cost in the neighborhood of 300 guilders. Wow, in US dollars, that's about $5,800. Obviously, this is a wealthy household. There's an inscription on the lid of the instrument that looks like it's written in Latin. Can you tell me what it says? Musica Latinae comas medicina dolorum. Translated from Latin, it means music is the companion of joy, the medicine for sorrow. What a beautiful thought. So in this painting, is your music the companion of joy or the medicine of sorrow? What do you mean? Well, I get the impression that you two have feelings for each other beyond your relationship as student and tutor. Vermeer painted you so close together, and then there's the way your tutor looks at you. I'm not sure I feel comfortable talking about this. Forgive me, but you're part of such an intriguing painting, and you must know that people enjoy a good love story. If I may, I'd like to answer your question. For me, this is a scene of both joy and sorrow. I am joyful to be in the same room with this lovely and talented young lady, but I'm sorrowful that I will never be any closer to her, even just to hold her hand. Her music makes me feel both glad and sad. Now that he has spoken, I can't deny that I feel the same way about him. Is that why Vermeer painted the blue chair between the two of you? To suggest that there is some sort of barrier for your love to overcome? You are so perceptive. Master Vermeer never painted anything without a reason. Everything in our painting has its place. Speaking of things in their place, the mirror above the lady's head reveals something interesting. Seen from the back, the lady seems to be looking down at her hands on the keyboard. But in the mirror, Vermeer has painted her looking at you. It is a rather creative clue to the nature of our relationship. Vermeer seems to be saying that the young lady is too shy to return your gaze in real life, so he uses the mirror to reveal her true desire. I must admit he captured my thoughts in a unique way. Since you're looking in the mirror, do you see what else Master Vermeer included there? I can see what looks like an easel. right above the lady's head, is that Vermeer's easel? It is indeed. But why would he allow us to see his easel? I've had many years to think about this, and here's my theory. Vermeer loved giving life to paint. I saw that with my own eyes, and he knew that his paintings would live on long after he died. So in his painting, he included a hint of himself in the form of his easel. In other words, just as it did with the young lady, the mirror reveals Vermeer's true desire, which was to live on in his paintings. Precisely. I like how you think. So there are actually two love stories going on here. The one between you and the lady, and the one between Vermeer and painting. I think that sums it up quite nicely.